job for years. Officers Harlan and Pritchard harassed, humiliated, and brutalized people without consequences, confident they were untouchable. Then they stopped two black twins, Darius and Elias Booker, both unarmed, and decided respect itself was resistance. When Darius pushed back, refusing to be treated like a criminal, the officers escalated fast. Words turned to threats. Threats turned to force. And when Darius shifted his weight, they fired, dropping him, while Elias was beaten, cuffed, and forced to watch. Now Elias Booker, 34, Delta Force, grief sharpened into discipline, has a debt to settle. They thought their story would be the only one that mattered. They thought badges made them untouchable. This time, the system won't erase them. Before we go further, comment where you're watching from and make sure you subscribe. The hum of the engine purred as a sleek black Dodge Charger rolled through quiet streets, its polished frame catching the golden glow of streetlights like a warning. Darius sat behind the wheel, fingers drumming lightly, eyes flicking between the road and his twin. Elias rode passenger, relaxed, but always scanning, watching manicured lawns and trimmed hedges pass in tidy perfection meant to signal who belongs. These neighborhoods all look the same, Darius muttered. Every house copy-pasted. Elias smirked. Serena liked it, said it felt safe. Darius scoffed. Safe when you live here, not when they see two black men in a Charger. Elias exhaled. Not tonight, D. It's been a long month. I want dinner with Serena and a quiet table. Darius's jaw tightened, but he let it go. Silence settled, heavy as the identical houses slipped past in perfect symmetry. Elias's eyes snapped to the rear view. Cop car, he murmured. Darius didn't react, but his grip hardened. The cruiser rolled by, slow enough to study them, slow enough to decide. Then came the U-turn neither brother needed to witness. Darius gave a humorless chuckle. Right on schedule. Elias's voice stayed steady. Just drive normal. Red and blue lights erupted behind them, siren cutting the stillness, commanding obedience like a verdict already written. Darius signaled, because even that could be twisted, and eased to the curb. Outside, sprinklers ticking, leaves whispering, a rich neighborhood asleep. Inside, both men set their hands where they could be seen, moving like survival was a drill. Let me talk, Elias said, turning toward his brother. Darius stared forward, nostrils flaring. And what's that change? Elias didn't blink. It changes whether we make it to Serena's front door in one piece. Darius spread his hands on the wheel, fingers wide. Elias placed his palms on the dashboard, deliberate and controlled. Footsteps crunched up. A flashlight swept the interior, lingering on their faces a beat too long, like suspicion had a taste. A gruff voice hit the window. License and registration. Darius stayed still. Elias reached for the glove box, slowly, exaggerated. In here, he said evenly, tone neutral, no sudden moves, no edge, because the rules were never optional. Officer Pritchard hovered near Elias's side, gaze sharp. Where you headed? Elias handed documents over, without breaking eye contact. Our sister's house, few blocks up. Pritchard didn't acknowledge it. He read the cards like he read people. Officer Harlan stepped to Darius's window, eyes narrowing. Step out! Darius breathed through his nose. Why? Harlan's expression didn't move. Because I said so. Elias cut in, calm but firm. Officer, why were we stopped? Pritchard answered like it was routine. Break-ins. You match a description. Darius laughed once, bitter. What description? Black and breathing. Elias felt his pulse spike. Harlan's voice hardened. Out! Now! The night tightened around them. Elias tried to ground it. We're military. Delta Force. IDs are right there. We're visiting family. Harlan scoffed. Then step out. The air inside the Charger thickened, every second stretching, every breath measured like a negotiation with fate. Darius's eyes locked on Harlan. Pride wrestling survival. Elias held his gaze. Silent warning. Darius reached for the handle. The latch clicked. Harlan's hand drifted to his holster, casual as if danger was something he carried for comfort. Darius stepped out first, slow and precise, standing a little taller than Harlan, hands visible. Elias followed, circling the front, positioning slightly ahead, protective without posturing. The cold night air felt sharper now, like a storm deciding to break. The officers watched with studied suspicion, less protocol, more personal. Turn around, hands on the car, Harlan ordered. Darius didn't move at first. His jaw tightened, nostrils flaring, anger simmering beneath a mask he'd learned to wear. Elias lifted a hand, not surrender, a request for calm. Check the IDs, he said, voice practiced. We're who we said. Harlan took the cards, flashlight skimming laminate. Pritchard leaned in. They traded a look Elias didn't miss. Out of town, Harlan muttered. Neither of you lives here. Darius chuckled, humorless. We told you. We're visiting. Harlan flipped the ID again, gaze cold. The questions weren't about facts. They were about control. So you expect me to believe you're cruising this neighborhood at this hour because your sister lives here? Harlan asked. Elias forced a slow breath. Yes, because it's true. Pritchard stepped closer, voice darker, curiosity sharpened into accusation. And what does your sister do to afford a place around here? The implication slapped the air. Darius sucked in a sharp breath. Elias stepped forward, tone clipped. She's an attorney, top of her class, big firm. That answer satisfy you? Harlan studied them like he was weighing their worth. Then he turned back to the cruiser. Stay put. Radio static crackled, murmurs, delays, stalling disguised as procedure. Darius muttered, They're running us like criminals. Elias answered, They're buying time. Elias kept his hands loose, controlled. Keep cool, he murmured, though the space for reason felt smaller by the second. Darius's voice went low, edged. You think cool ever saved anybody from men who already decided we're guilty? Harlan returned, face unreadable but heavier. Hands on the car, both of you! Elias exhaled. We gave you everything. Harlan didn't blink. Elias turned, palms on the hood, cold metal biting. Darius hesitated, then followed with reluctant precision. The moment Darius's hands touched the car, Harlan grabbed his wrist. Elias saw a flash cross Darius's face, primal and furious. This wasn't a search. It was a provocation, a dare, a pressure designed to make a man flinch so they could call it threat. The hood's rough paint scraped Darius's palms as Harlan pressed too hard, sliding hands down his back like punishment. Spread your legs wider, Harlan clipped. Darius shifted only slightly. Ain't like I got an arsenal, he muttered, frustration leaking through restraint. Harlan leaned in, breath close, grip tightening. You got a problem? Darius tensed. Yeah, being treated like a thief. Elias felt the air change before the sentence finished. The officers weren't trying to confirm a story. They were hunting a spark. Elias warned softly, but Harlan's mouth curled. Listen to your brother, boy. The word landed deliberate, meant to cut. Darius jerked, head snapping toward him, restraint fraying. Elias stepped in fast, shoulder between them, hands raised like a shield. "Stop," Elias said, urgent but controlled. "Not here." Darius's breath came hard, instincts screaming to push back. Harlan's smirk said he'd already won. Slow as theater, he pulled out cuffs, metal glinting under streetlights like a promise of humiliation. "We're detaining you while we confirm your story," Harlan said. Elias stepped forward. "Detaining for what?" Harlan shrugged. "Obstruction. Suspicion. Plenty." Darius snapped, "That's a lie," and pulled his arm away as Harlan reached. Reaction, not attack. That was all they needed. Harlan yanked Darius's arm. Pritchard seized the other, shoving him toward the charger. Elias grabbed Darius's shoulder. "Go with it," he urged. Darius barked, "Let go!" The officers called it resistance before it even finished happening. "He's resisting!" Harlan shouted, already rewriting reality. Pritchard's hand flew to his belt. "He's got a weapon!" The lie was still forming when Harlan's pistol cleared leather. Too fast, too ready, like this moment had been rehearsed in his mind. The gunshot cracked, the night open. Darius jolted, chest arching, then collapsed hard onto the pavement. Elias screamed his name and lunged. Then a taser hit him, electricity locking his muscles, stealing breath, dropping him to the ground with helpless force. "Samon dizayn disen." "Officer down!" Harlan yelled. Panic performed on command. Elias heard the lie inside it. Darius lay feet away, chest barely rising, fingers twitching weakly. Elias dragged himself forward anyway, body screaming. "Hold on!" he choked, reaching for the only hand that mattered. Darius coughed, wet and ragged, eyes searching Elias's face. His grip found Elias's sleeve, weak, desperate. "I'm sorry," he whispered, barely audible. Elias pressed both hands over the wound, begging time to reverse, begging breath to stay inside his brother. "Stay with me," Elias pleaded, words tumbling too fast. "You're good. Just breathe." Darius's eyelids fluttered. His lips moved, sound thin as air. Elias's hands trembled, pressing harder as warmth spread between his fingers as the night stole what it wanted. Darius's mouth formed the last request, a broken whisper. "Don't let them!" Pain seized him. His grip tightened, then slipped. "Don't let them! Get away with this!" Elias squeezed his hand, vision swimming, refusing to blink away the truth he could not carry. Hands yanked Elias back by his jacket, ripping him from Darius like he was nothing. Elias clawed forward. "Please!" A blow slammed his ribs. Another followed. "Stop resisting!" Someone barked as they forced him face down, asphalt scraping his cheek, weight crushing his back. A knee drove into his spine. His wrists were wrenched behind him, twisted until pain flashed, white. Cuffs snapped shut. Hair was yanked, head forced up. Harlan's eyes gleamed with unchecked fury. Elias screamed, raw and shattered, "You killed my brother!" Harlan shoved Elias's face back down. "That's what you think?" he sneered. "What I saw was a dangerous suspect." Elias's voice cracked. "He was unarmed. You murdered him!" Harlan pressed harder. "You know how this works. Who do you think they'll believe?" Elias went still, realization hollowing him. Harlan dusted his uniform like it was routine. Backup arrived. Pritchard holstered the smoking gun, eyes flickering with hesitation for one heartbeat. Then he stepped back. Harlan called out, "Smooth!" He reached. We had no choice. The story rewrote itself in real time. Elias turned just enough to see Darius lying motionless, blood pooling into pavement cracks. A new voice cut through. "What's going on?" Elias was hauled upright by his cuffs, dizzy, ribs screaming, truth sliding out of reach. "You're under arrest for assaulting an officer," someone muttered. The words were static. A squad car door opened. Elias was shoved inside, body slamming plastic. Through smeared glass, he watched Darius left alone on the street, already being erased by procedure and lies. Harlan walked past the window, calm and composed, moving on like he'd checked a box. The door slammed shut. Elias's fists clenched behind his back, nails digging into palms. The last image burned into him, his twin's body on cold pavement. The world blurred. Elias sat slumped, wrist aching, breath hollow. He could still feel Darius's weight, hear that trembling plea. Sirens, radios, distant voices, everything faded beneath grief's roar as the cruiser rolled away, dragging him from the only person who'd always understood him. Time broke into fragments, red-blue flashes on concrete, rough hands shoving him forward, the stink of sweat and asphalt and blood. Neon signs smeared past the window like a bad dream. Nothing felt real, except the fact that Darius was gone. His mind looped back to hours earlier. Darius joking about identical houses, Elias promising Serena a quiet night. Safe, Serena had said. Elias swallowed a bitter sound. Safe was a costume this neighborhood wore, never meant to fit them. They'd been together always, born minutes apart, names spoken like one breath, Darius and Elias. As kids, they learned rules nobody taught in school. Hands visible in stores, stillness when cruisers passed, smiles calibrated to survive, anger buried where it couldn't be used against them. Elias had learned to keep Darius grounded when the world pushed too far, but this time he wasn't fast enough. He squeezed his eyes shut, head pounding. If he'd spoken sooner, if he'd pulled Darius back, if he'd been stronger, anything. But the IFS didn't breathe. The cruiser slowed, turned sharply, snapping him from memory. The precinct rose ahead, under fluorescent buzz, sterile, indifferent. A door opened. Hands grabbed him again, dragging him out. His ribs throbbed. Nobody cared. Inside, white tile swallowed him like the world had. They fingerprinted him, photographed him, processed him like paperwork. He said nothing, not because he lacked words, but because words didn't resurrect Darius. Somewhere, forms were already shaping the dead into threat and the living into criminal, line by line. Hours passed in a haze. Elias slumped in a hard plastic chair, cuffed to a table, head low. The door creaked. A voice snapped his name. He lifted his gaze slowly and saw Serena in the doorway, eyes wide, breathing hard, fear and fury fighting in her face. She took in his bruised jaw, dried blood at his mouth, wrists shackled like he was guilty. For a moment she couldn't speak. Then her breath hitched, expression shattering. Elias understood instantly. Someone had told her. She already knew what was missing. Serena stepped forward, heels clicking against linoleum, forcing herself upright. She wasn't here to collapse. Not yet. She pulled a chair, sat across from him, voice steady, by sheer will. "Elias," she said. It took him effort to crawl back into the present. "They killed him," Elias murmured, hoarse from screaming. Serena's jaw tightened. "I know," she whispered. She reached toward his cuffs, careful fingers touching metal biting skin. "We're getting you out, then we fight. But first, freedom." Elias blinked, exhaustion carved deep. "They're charging me. Assault. Resisting. They'll say Darius attacked." Serena's stomach twisted. "Of course," she leaned in, voice low. "I believe you. I believe him. But belief won't beat their narrative. We need leverage. Serena glanced toward the two-way mirror and lowered her voice. I called every reporter I trust, every civil rights lawyer, every organizer. By morning, the city will be watching. Elias's eyes flickered, almost hope, almost fear. You think that stops them? It makes burying the truth harder, she said. They can't disappear you if everyone's looking. Elias swallowed, throat tight. He'd seen too many names become hashtags. Serena squeezed his hand anyway. I'm not letting them rewrite Darius while I'm breathing. When Elias stepped outside, cold air slapped his face, too open after concrete walls. The cuffs were gone, but a heavier chain remained. Serena moved beside him, shoulders tense. Reporters waited beyond barricades, cameras flashing like lightning, hungry for a sentence to package pain. Elias! What happened? Did officers act unlawfully? Microphones lunged toward him. He didn't look up. He couldn't breathe with strangers, feeding on his grief. Serena gripped his arm and pushed forward, carving a path to the car with pure will. The door shut, and the chaos dulled to a distant hum. Serena exhaled, rubbing her temple. You okay? Elias didn't answer. The same system that freed him overnight still held his throat, still shaped the story. Silence was the only thing he could control. Home smelled like lavender anise and wood polish, cruelly normal. The couch still held Darius's favorite dent. Their mother's old quilt still hung like a blessing. For one heartbeat, Elias almost believed Darius was in the next room, until silence crushed him again. Serena set her briefcase down, posture snapping into lawyer mode. Tomorrow we hit the DA hard. Federal pressure, if we have to. Elias stared at the floor, voice quiet. And if they do nothing? Serena hesitated, then steadied. Then we go higher. We don't stop. Days bled together. Calls, filings, meetings, protests swelling outside the station. Every attempt met the same wall. Reviewing. Insufficient evidence. Officers acted in the line of duty. Elias watched Serena's fury build, watched power fold its hands and wait, hoping attention would die. At the dining table, Elias stared at untouched food while Serena argued on the phone. Where's the body cam? She snapped. The TV droned. A press conference banner crawled across the screen, calling it a tragic incident, like it was weather, like Darius was a statistic. The chief spoke smooth and rehearsed. Life lost is unfortunate, but officers faced a threat. The camera panned. Harlan and Pritchard, crisp uniforms, blank faces. Harlan stepped up, voice solemn by design. I feared for my life, he said, and the lie landed like law. Something inside Elias snapped. The emptiness burned away, replaced by heat so sharp it steadied him. Serena hung up, saw his hands trembling. Elias, she said carefully. He didn't move, eyes locked on the screen as the lie settled into official truth. You heard it, he said, voice scraped raw. Serena nodded, breath steady by force. I did. He turned. His eyes were different, no longer hollow, just hard. So what now? The calm in his tone felt like thunder right before it breaks. We keep fighting, Serena said, firm, harder, louder. We take their narrative away. Elias exhaled, bitter. Narrative, he repeated, like poison. It's all stories to them. They shape it until my brother looks like a monster, and they look like heroes. Serena's composure cracked. You think I don't know? She snapped, then softened. Honest. You're right. It's rigged. I hate it. But if you step outside the law, they win twice. They'll turn you into the headline they want. Elias paced, hands over his head. Fear, he spat. Self-defense. He laughed without humor. That's all it takes to excuse murder. Serena swallowed hard. I don't know it'll work, she admitted, but if you do something irreversible, they'll bury Darius forever. Elias stopped, staring at her. Silence thickened. Then he shook his head. They already buried him, he murmured. Serena's stomach turned. She heard the finality. She reached for his arm. Elias. Wait. He slipped away, turning toward the door, leaving her with dread. The door closed behind him, swallowing the last sliver of light. Serena stood frozen, fear arriving late and sharp. Outside, night wrapped Elias like armor. Training made him disciplined, but this wasn't a sanctioned mission. This was grief with direction and no patience. He had no clean plan at first, only purpose. He needed to see Harlan and Pritchard again, needed them to feel watched for once, not with fantasy, but with truth. Predators had patterns. So did cops who believed they were untouchable. Officers had routines, lives after shift. Elias was good at finding patterns. Harlan lived alone in a tidy neighborhood, porch dark, no cameras, 5 steps from driveway to door every night. Pritchard rented an apartment, quiet and forgettable, like he wanted to vanish. Pritchard drank at a bar near the precinct, drowning something with cheap whiskey and loud TVs. Elias tracked schedules, not to strike, but to understand. He wanted to know what kind of men could pull a trigger, then sleep, what they told themselves to stay whole. He dug into records next, complaints, reports, whispers sealed in folders. The numbers were sickening, stops that ended in bruises, routine arrests that ended in broken ribs, names that vanished after internal review. Harlan's file read like a graveyard with signatures. 7 brutality complaints, everyone dismissed. Elias read details until his stomach churned. A 19-year-old beaten into nerve damage. A black veteran slammed for asking why he'd been stopped. A father arrested for filming outside his own home. Pattern after silence. Pritchard's record looked cleaner, which made it worse. His pattern was complicity, standing by while Harlan did the dirty work, then backing the lie afterward. Elias realized silence could wear a polite face, could hide behind paperwork, could kill without pulling the trigger. He found old body cam footage from 3 years back. A black teenager on a bike in a white neighborhood, voice shaking, hands trembling with his ID. Harlan's tone was smooth and mean, accusation baked into every question, hostility dressed up as concern. The kid didn't resist. He froze. Harlan slammed him onto a squad car anyway, claiming suspicious movement. In the footage, Pritchard hovered and watched, doing nothing. It ended with the boy shoved to pavement, cuffed, and told he'd failed to comply, like compliance was oxygen. Elias shut the laptop, anger roaring now, alive and heavy. This wasn't only Darius. This was every name buried under paperwork, every man treated like prey. Harlan and Pritchard hadn't made a mistake. They'd built a system inside the system, and it fed them. Grief sharpened into resolve. Elias breathed slow, forcing his rage into discipline's cage. He would expose patterns, not indulge impulses. He would drag the truth into the kind of light that burned, and if the city wouldn't listen quietly, it would hear loudly. He started mapping complaints, dates, districts, supervisors, the same signatures approving dismissals. Every breadcrumb mattered. Every delay was a choice. Every choice left fingerprints, even if they wore gloves. Back home, Serena's calls multiplied. Media, coalitions, activists, organizing. Elias stayed a step ahead, feeding her specifics, names, timelines, contradictions in the officer's statements. Truth became leverage, law became pressure, and pressure, when it builds long enough, becomes something the powerful can't ignore. Serena studied him when he returned before dawn. Eyes clearer, voice quiet. "Elias," she warned, searching his face. He nodded once. "I'm not doing anything stupid," he said. "I'm doing what they never expected, documenting them so cleanly they can't dodge it." Still, the temptation to burn it all down pressed at his ribs. Darius's last words beat in his skull. Serena placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll make them answer," she promised. Elias stared past her, thinking, they must be forced to face what they've done. The next press cycle hit. Officials repeated ongoing investigation. Harlan smiled for cameras like a man blessed. Elias watched, fist tight, then unclenched. "They want a story," he murmured. "Fine. We'll give them one they can't control, one built on receipts." Night wrapped the city again as Elias moved through it with measured steps. Careful not to be seen. Careful not to become the villain they wanted. He wasn't hunting bodies. He was hunting proof. Hunting the cracks where truth leaked out. Hunting the moment the mask slipped. He sat outside the station watching shift change like a tide. Badges laughed, slapped backs, went home. Elias noted faces and timestamps. Nothing illegal, nothing reckless. Small details were fuel for a courtroom, and for the spotlight Serena was building, brick by brick, day by day. Harlan parked, walked the same 5 steps, disappeared behind his door. Pritchard drifted to the bar, shoulders slumped, eyes dull. Elias didn't approach. He just watched, letting the weight of consequence hover near them, even if they couldn't name it yet. At home, Elias spread files across Serena's table. She stared, stunned. "Where did you get all this?" Elias's voice stayed flat. "Public records, old footage, people who've been waiting for someone to care." Serena exhaled slowly. This can move a judge. Together they built pressure, motions, subpoenas, affidavits from victims Harlan had bruised and forgotten. Serena's writing turned rage into law. Elias's discipline kept everything clean. They wouldn't win by becoming reckless. They'd win by being undeniable, by making denial impossible. Still, Elias couldn't shake the memory of asphalt under his cheek, the taste of blood, Darius's hand slipping away. He swore privately that no one would erase his brother again, not with paperwork, not with press conferences, not with that smug word that excused everything, fear. The city started to murmur. More people came forward. Old complaints resurfaced. A journalist asked why body cam footage was delayed, why timelines didn't match. Serena smiled without joy. "Because someone's hiding," she said. Elias felt the first real crack in the wall. Dispatch audio surfaced with gaps. Edited pauses where truth should have been. Serena filed emergency motions. Protesters filled streets with candles and names. Harlan and Pritchard stood straighter, but their eyes flickered now, sensing the tide shifting, sensing that untouchable was becoming a question. Elias watched the news and finally spoke the vow he'd swallowed since that night. "I'm going to make them face what they did," he said, voice steady, lethal with certainty. "Not revenge reckoning. For Darius, for everybody." Serena nodded, tears quiet, jaw set. He closed the laptop, breathing slow, rage contained inside discipline. Outside, the city lights glowed indifferent, but something had changed. Harlan and Pritchard weren't untouchable anymore. Elias Booker was coming with truth, and nothing would stop the world from seeing it. Elias exhaled slow, forcing air through lungs that felt scorched from the inside. He braced both hands on the desk, grounding himself. He had what he needed. Now came the decision, what to do with it. He left in the dead of night, hood up, footsteps swallowed by pavement. Harlan's house came first. Elias stood across the street in shadows, eyes fixed on dark windows and the soft flicker of a TV inside. Elias pictured Harlan on the couch, beer in hand, channel surfing like he hadn't stolen a life. He moved on to Pritchard's apartment next. Same routine, same quiet surveillance. Down the block, the bar stayed open, half full of laughing cops. Night wrapped Elias like a cloak. Neon haze, distant sirens, city breathing indifferent. The fire in his chest cooled into something colder, sharper. He wasn't only grieving anymore. He was focused. Tonight, he decided, Pritchard would feel hunted. The bar matched his expectations. Dim, forgettable, tucked near the precinct, where uniforms came to drink and disappear. Only a handful of officers inside. Pritchard sat near center, slouched easy, whiskey loose in his fingers. His uniform was gone, but the posture stayed. Relaxed confidence, like fear was for other people. Elias lingered in back shadows, close enough to hear voices and clinking ice. Then another officer leaned in, grinning, and Elias's blood chilled. "Media's tearing this up," the cop laughed. "You and Harlan gonna be good?" Pritchard smirked. "Standard play. Internal review, paid leave, then we're back." He sipped like it was paperwork, nothing more. The other cop chuckled. "Hell of a shot. You sure the guy didn't have something?" Pritchard scoffed. "If he did, we'd find it. Doesn't matter. He sealed his fate the second he got mouthy." Elias's world tilted. The air left his lungs in one sharp exhale. They were bragging, laughing, mocking Darius like he'd been nothing, like his twin was just another erased statistic. Pritchard leaned back, amusement thick in his voice. "Harlan did the shaky officer act for cameras," Pritchard said, grinning. "Between us, we did the city a favor. Ain't nobody gonna miss that guy." Elias heard ringing in his ears. Something inside him hardened into one path. He stepped outside into crisp night air, letting it cool the blaze just enough to think clean. Harlan and Pritchard believed the badge made them untouchable, judge, jury, executioner. Elias decided they would learn how wrong that belief was. He'd weighed options for days, fast or slow, message or silence, while memorizing routines. Now the choice settled. Pritchard would face fear and helplessness he'd never tasted, an echo of what Darius felt on that street. Elias pulled his hood, tighter, mind-assembling steps with soldier precision, timing, isolation, distance. Pritchard left the bar around the same time nightly, alone, walking to a backlot away from light. Too cocky to imagine anyone watched. Elias checked the time. 15 minutes. Perfect. He slipped along the building, low and quiet, into the alley and toward the lot. He found a shadowed corner beyond camera range and waited. Breath steady, muscles coiled like pre-combat calm. Cold air couldn't dull anticipation humming under his skin. He pictured Pritchard unlocking his car, relaxing, believing the world still bent his way. Elias would let that comfort bloom, then rip it away, so the lesson landed with full weight. He heard the bar door open. Yellow light spilled onto pavement, stretching shadows. Pritchard stepped out exactly as expected, unhurried, oblivious. His shoulders were loose, posture easy, the confidence of a man who'd never feared consequences. Elias stayed still, jaw clenched, watching Pritchard dig for keys and whistle softly. alcohol warming him into carelessness. Not drunk, just dulled. Pritchard clicked to unlock. The chirp cut the quiet. That was when Elias moved. Boots scraped lightly, just enough to announce presence. Pritchard stiffened and glanced back with mild irritation, like Elias was a nuisance. Then his eyes sharpened. Recognition sparked. A slow, arrogant smile spread across his face. "Well, well," Pritchard drawled. "Didn't expect you out here, Booker." Elias said nothing. Pritchard looked him over with the same condescension from that fatal night, like the world's rules belonged to him. "You here for answers? For your little court case?" Pritchard chuckled. "I told you, clean shooting." Elias breathed through his nose, holding fury down. Pritchard stepped closer, smirk widening, voice casual and cruel. "I mean, it ain't personal," he said. "It's how it works. You and your brother made a mistake. You paid." His eyes narrowed with lazy certainty. "Darius was going to end up dead anyway. Might as well be me." Elias moved before thought finished forming. His fist snapped forward, impact sharp in the night, sending Pritchard into the car. The smirk vanished. Blood welled, shock flashed, then anger, then something new starting to creep behind his eyes. Pritchard spat a curse, reaching instinctively as if the badge could still save him. Elias was on him again. 2 fast strikes, then a driving shove that stole breath. Elias's voice dropped low, deadly calm. "You didn't think I'd do anything." "Carter, listen!" Pritchard tried, words stumbling. Elias cut him off with another hard hit to the body, folding him. Pritchard wheezed, hands up now, not to fight, but to bargain. That shift tasted like truth. Elias grabbed his collar, hauled him upright, and slammed him against the hood. Metal rang. Pritchard's cheek pressed down, breath ragged. Elias leaned close. "This what it felt like," he hissed. "When you pinned my brother down?" Pritchard struggled, but Elias held him there, firm, controlled, not frantic. "You don't want this," Pritchard gasped. "You put hands on a cop, you're done." Elias yanked him back, eyes burning. "You think I care about done?" Elias drove him down again, forcing Pritchard to taste pavement's cold bite. Pritchard coughed, panic rising. Elias's chest heaved, not with chaos, but with contained wrath. "My brother begged," he said, "and you laughed." Pritchard's throat bobbed. "Please." The word cracked out, small and ugly. Elias froze for half a heartbeat because Darius had said it too. Elias's voice turned quiet, almost conversational. "That's the first please I've ever heard from you." Elias let silence stretch, letting fear do its work. Then he pulled Pritchard closer, forcing eye contact. "You think you deserve mercy?" Pritchard's mouth trembled, blood streaking his chin. Elias shut his eyes briefly, then opened them colder. He made a choice. Not an easy ending, no quick escape. Something lasting. Elias moved with trained precision, using controlled force to leave Pritchard broken, in a way that meant he couldn't shrug it off as a bar fight or brush under protocol. Pritchard's body seized with shock and pain. His bravado collapsed into raw terror. He tried to crawl, to speak, to command his limbs, then realized he couldn't. His eyes widened, frantic. Elias stepped back, watching that helplessness take root. Elias crouched beside him, voice soft and merciless. "That feeling," he murmured, "that powerless, trapped fear, that's what men like you made people feel. That's what Darius felt, while you called it procedure." Pritchard's lips moved, but words failed him. He shook with panic, eyes pleading. Elias rose, expression unreadable. He turned away, clean and quiet, melting into the alley like smoke. No speeches, no witnesses, only consequence left behind. By the time anyone found Pritchard, Elias would be gone, already moving to the next inevitable step. Because it wasn't over, not until Harlan felt the same dread. Not until the word untouchable tasted like a lie in his own mouth. The city pulsed around Elias, unaware, life humming on. He moved between streetlights like a ghost. This was the point of no return. He'd felt it the moment he left Pritchard. There would be no redemption, only pursuit. The department reacted faster than Elias expected. Once Pritchard's condition hit radios, alarms went up. The precinct locked down. They didn't treat it as random violence. They treated it as war. And they started assembling a name. Elias watched his own place get raided from a distance, tucked behind an industrial building. Red-blue lights painted windows. Officers poured in with weapons drawn, then lowered them when they realized he wasn't there. Too late. He'd already erased himself. He felt no panic, only inevitability. Then his phone buzzed. Serena. Elias stepped deeper into shadow before answering. Yeah. Her voice hit him tight and controlled. He knew instantly something had changed. Elias, he was here, Serena said. Elias's body went still. Who? His voice dropped, dangerous. Serena's breath shook. Harlan. He forced his way in. He was panicking. He kept saying he knew it was you. Heat blurred Elias's vision. What did he do? Serena hesitated. Then the truth came out like broken glass. He put a gun to my head, Elias. Said if I didn't tell him where you are, he'd kill me first. The world narrowed into one cold line. Elias closed his eyes, voice calm in a way that meant ruin. Where is he now? Serena swallowed. He left. I don't know. Elias breathed once, slow, controlled, then spoke like steel. You need to move, Elias ordered. Hotel. Cash. Tell nobody, don't go home. Serena tried to argue. Elias cut it off. I'm not asking. Silence. Then her voice small. Be careful. It was the closest thing to permission. Elias lowered the phone and turned from the raid. Harlan had crossed a line, made it personal. That meant it ended now. No more waiting, no more chess. Elias moved with singular focus, the city blurring as he drove toward the inevitable collision. Harlan wasn't just running, he was unraveling. A cornered man with a badge becomes dangerous in new ways. Elias knew he'd lash out again, maybe tonight, maybe later. Men like Harlan didn't surrender control. They tried to burn everything down. Elias had prepared. Days earlier, while studying routines, he'd planted a discreet tracker on Harlan's car. Small, silent, untraceable without knowing to look. Winning wasn't rage. Winning was preparation. The blinking dot on his screen proved it. Harlan's dot zigzagged through back streets, doubling back, trying to shake a threat he couldn't see. Not fast enough. Elias adjusted course smoothly, grip tight, mind cold. He wasn't chasing now. He was closing a hunt he didn't start. The roads thinned into darkness. No traffic, little light, only asphalt stretching open. Elias cut his headlights and became shadow. Up ahead, Harlan's car swerved slightly, eyes everywhere, panic driving. He didn't realize the danger was already beside him. Elias jerked the wheel, impact violent and instant. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Harlan's car spun and slammed the guardrail, momentum ripping control away. Elias braced through recoil and stopped clean. Before the wreck fully settled, he was already moving. Elias hit pavement running. Harlan sat dazed, fighting the seatbelt, breath short and stunned. His gun lay out of reach. Elias yanked the door open and hauled him out by the collar, dumping him hard onto the ground. Harlan coughed, trying to rise. Elias's fist crashed into his face, snapping his head sideways. Harlan groaned, rolling. "Wait!" he rasped. Elias drove a brutal kick into his ribs, dropping him again. "You didn't wait when Darius begged," Elias said. Harlan's eyes went wide, wild, fear finally real. I didn't have a choice," he wheezed. Elias laughed once, ice cold. "No," he said. "Now you don't." He dragged Harlan up, forcing him to look, forcing him to understand. No backup. Harlan trembled, coughing blood, hands scrabbling uselessly. Elias stepped closer, shadows swallowing him. "You like throwing people around," Elias said, each word measured. "You like watching them beg. How's it feel, knowing nobody's coming to save you?" Fear flashed. Then Harlan tried to claw back power with a smile. "You think this changes anything?" he rasped. "You're just another angry thug." Elias saw red. His fist slammed into Harlan's jaw, snapping the grin away like it never existed. Elias grabbed his shirt and hammered him down again. "Say his name," Elias growled. Harlan spat blood and laughed weakly. "That mouthy criminal had it coming," he slurred. He tried to twist the knife. "Bet your sister's proud, watching you become what we said." Something snapped. Elias's punches came hard and relentless, rage finally breaking its leash. Harlan's body convulsed under impacts, blood splattering the pavement. Elias leaned in, breath harsh. "You don't get to speak on Serena," he snarled. "You don't get to speak on Darius." He hit him again and again until Harlan's laughter died into choking, wet breaths. When Harlan finally went limp, his face swollen and wrecked, the road held only silence and consequences. Harlan wheezed through ruined lips. "You think you win?" he slurred. "This ain't justice. You just signed your death warrant." Then he spit the word. Soft, filthy, familiar. Boy. Elias froze, because that word carried a lifetime of meaning. Even broken on the ground, Harlan tried to stand above him. Elias's breathing steadied. He knew Harlan was right about one thing. There was no going back. The system would hunt Elias forever. But Harlan wouldn't walk away whole. Elias exhaled slowly. The rage didn't vanish. It sharpened into finality. Harlan lay sprawled, breath ragged, blood streaking his face. His hands twitched, searching for control that wasn't there. Elias stood over him, fists still clenched, eyes cold. He could end it fast. One clean finish, and the world would barely blink. But death would be escape. Harlan had never lived with consequence. Elias wanted him to wake every day trapped in what he'd done. Power stripped, authority gone, fear permanent. Harlan coughed, eyes bloodshot, trying to speak. Another plea, another lie. Elias didn't want to hear it. He wasn't in the road anymore. He was back on that pavement beside Darius, hearing wet, broken breaths and a trembling hand squeezing his sleeve. "Don't let them get away with it," Darius had whispered. Elias had promised, and that promise didn't require mercy. It required certainty. Elias made his decision settle deep, calm, final. Harlan would live, but the badge would never protect him again. Panic hit Harlan's face. "Wait, please don't!" Elias knelt, gripping his shirt, forcing eye contact. His voice went low, almost soft. "You were right about one thing," he said. "I will be hunted. But so will you, inside yourself." Elias moved with practiced control, using force meant to stop, not instruct, a brutal permanence without explaining how. Harlan's body locked in shock, then collapsed. He breathed, but his legs didn't answer. His arms trembled once, then fell heavy. Realization flooded Harlan's eyes. Horror, disbelief, the dawning truth of helplessness. He tried to move and couldn't. Elias watched, expression blank. "You ever hear a man beg?" Elias murmured. "I have." He stood. Harlan didn't. Elias turned and disappeared into dark, unhurried. Behind him, Harlan's fingers twitched weakly. His chest shuddered. His mouth opened for sound that couldn't fix anything. Elias didn't look back. The decision was done. The road took his footsteps and swallowed them. Sirens rose across the city, distant then closer, splitting night like alarms in a war zone. The force wouldn't accept humiliation quietly. Two of their own crippled meant retaliation. Every badge would become a weapon aimed at Elias's back. Elias moved through alleys, avoiding cameras, keeping low. The hunt was fully alive now. He expected it. What he hadn't expected, what still burned, was Serena getting pulled into it. Harlan had made that choice when he put a gun to her head. Darius was already gone, buried under lies and procedure. Serena was the last tether to anything human. Elias clenched his jaw and slipped into a quiet apartment building's back entrance, climbing stairs fast, breath steady despite the ache in his legs. Hallway lights buzzed, dim, air stale with smoke and old paint. He reached the last door, knocked, once. A pause, the lock slid. Serena's tired eyes met his. No surprise, only understanding. She stepped aside and let him in without a word. The place was temporary, not home. A half-zipped suitcase sat by the couch, legal papers stacked neat beside it. Serena, always prepared. Elias faced her, shoulders heavy. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, the words tasting like ash. Serena didn't flinch. She crossed her arms and waited, letting silence demand honesty. Elias exhaled. "This wasn't supposed to touch you," he said. "I knew what would happen to me. I didn't want them looking at you like they look at me." Serena gave a bitter scoff. "You think this is the first time?" she said. "You think a suit makes me safe? They see me the same way they saw Darius, same way they see you." Elias didn't argue because she was right. Serena glanced at the documents, then back at him. "You did what you believed you had to do," she said, voice steady. Elias looked down, jaw tight. "That doesn't mean I don't regret dragging you into it." Her gaze sharpened. "Do you regret it?" Elias thought of Harlan and Pritchard, of fear finally catching them, of Darius's last breath. He lifted his eyes. "No," he said, voice firm. "I don't." Serena held his stare a long moment, then nodded once, accepting the truth without applause. Elias swallowed and stepped back. "I have to go." The finality sat heavy. Serena nodded, eyes glossy but controlled. "Where?" He shook his head. "Doesn't matter." She reached out, gripping his shoulder like an anchor. "They won't stop hunting you." "I know," Elias said. Serena's voice dropped. "They'll shape the story however they want. Make you the monster." Elias didn't blink. "Let them," he murmured. Serena's fingers tightened. "If you ever need—" Elias cut her off gently. "I don't want you waiting for a call that won't come," he said, forcing her to hear it. "I need you alive. You're what's left." Serena's jaw clenched, but she nodded, swallowing grief like she'd practiced her whole life. "Then go," she said, voice breaking only at the edges. Elias took one last look at her, at home, at history, then turned and slipped out. He didn't look back, because if he did, he might not leave. And leaving was survival now. Team changed shape. No weeks, No months, only movement. Elias stayed ahead of the dragnet, invisible in a world of cameras and checkpoints. He stripped himself of everything traceable. No accounts, no patterns, no digital shadow. The media storm erupted overnight. Ex-Delta Force operative turned cop killer. They screamed terrorism, never saying Darius's name, never saying what started it. They built a monster because monsters justify budgets, overtime, militarized raids, and unchecked power. But Elias had been trained to disappear. He moved like smoke through cities, never staying long enough for recognition to settle. Cash only. Quiet rooms. Back roads. He became a rumor, false sightings, and dead-end tips, while the hunt kept chewing its own tail. He found a new identity through people who specialized in vanishing men. Paperwork, a new name, a new face to the system. He didn't celebrate it. There was no new life, only a longer road. He paid in cash and kept walking. A small hill town became his shelter, quiet, tucked deep, the kind of place that didn't ask questions if you kept your head down. He took under-the-table jobs, repairs, hauling, construction, anything that paid cash and kept his hands busy. People there knew him just enough to nod, not enough to wonder. He was nobody, exactly what he needed. But the past never truly left. Sometimes the radio carried his name like a curse, and he'd freeze, listening without moving. One night, in a quiet bar at the town's edge, he heard Serena's name on the news. His chest tightened, but he didn't react. The anchor's voice crackled through static, talking about findings, internal review, and pressure that finally cracked a sealed wall. Harlan's misconduct surfaced, patterns exposed, complaints reopened, victims finally believed. Pritchard's record got stripped bare. It was too late for Darius, but enough to shake the department. The story couldn't stay buried forever once light hit the paper trail. The report mentioned Serena, how she'd fought, how she'd been questioned and shadowed, how they tried to squeeze her and failed. No charges stuck, no disbarment. They had nothing real, only intimidation. Elias finally let himself breathe. The broadcast moved on. Elias left bills on the counter and stepped into cold night, breath fogging. His life had become quiet by necessity, days bleeding together. But one thing mattered. Serena was safe, free. That was the only win he allowed himself. "Don't let them get away with it," Darius's voice echoed in his head. And they hadn't. Harlan and Pritchard would never harm anyone again. Elias Booker became a ghost, another name swallowed by the world, because that's what survival demanded. The sky hung overcast, gray and heavy. A cemetery sat on the city's outskirts, quiet enough to feel like the world forgot it existed. Elias hadn't forgotten. He stood at the path's edge, hands in pockets, breath measured, feet suddenly heavier. 1 year. 1 year since he'd seen Darius's face, since he'd felt his twin's hand gripping his sleeve, since those last words turned into a vow. He walked closer, wind cold against his skin, eyes fixed on the headstone. Darius Booker, beloved son, devoted brother, taken too soon. Elias swallowed hard, throat burning. His knees hit the ground, hands pressed into earth like he could pull his brother back. Grief came in waves, slow, then crushing until he couldn't breathe right. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice raw. "I tried. I made them pay. I made sure they'd never touch anyone again." His fingers dug into dirt. "But I still lost you." A sob broke loose, shoulders shaking as memories came too fast. Laughter, late-night talks, twin language without words. Darius had been the one who steadied him until the world stole him. Elias wiped his face, breath uneven. "I wish you were here," he whispered. "I wish none of it happened." "But I wouldn't change it," he said, voice cracking. A familiar warmth settled beside him, quiet presence, steady hand on his back. Elias didn't flinch. He didn't need to look to know. Serena knelt beside him, silent, letting him break without fixing him. "You found me," Elias murmured. Serena exhaled a small, sad breath. "You think I wouldn't?" He shook his head slightly. "Didn't know if I'd ever see you again." Her hand tightened once. "You needed time. I knew where you'd go." Elias turned and studied her, older by the year, stronger through the fire. "Are you happy?" Serena considered. "Happy's complicated," she admitted, "but I'm okay." Elias nodded, eyes returning to the stone. "That's all I ever wanted." Serena shifted closer. "What about you?" Elias let the question settle. No home, no future, only motion. He met her gaze. "I'll be okay." Serena searched his face, then nodded, like she believed it because she had to. Elias pulled her into an embrace, tight, real, grounding. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. When they separated, he gave a small, reluctant breath of a laugh. "I can't stay." Serena nodded. "But you can always find me." A flicker of a smile touched Elias's mouth. "And you can always find me." Serena smirked through tired eyes. "Harder with you." Elias looked once more at Darius's name, squeezed her hand, then walked away, vanishing but no longer lost. Dignity is not resistance. If you've lived long enough to remember separate water fountains and "yes, sir" spoken out of fear, you know this. A traffic stop can become a life or death moment in seconds. Darius and Elias did everything right. Hands visible, voices steady. Yet respect was treated like defiance. The lesson is painful and plain. Your worth is real, even when the world tries to label you a threat. Truth needs witnesses and paper trails. Bad systems thrive in the dark. What changed the tide wasn't a rumor. It was receipts, timelines, prior complaints, missing body cam minutes, dispatch gaps. Older folks understand documentation. Keep the bill, keep the letter, keep the record. In modern America, a clear trail can move a judge, wake the press, and protect the living from being erased. Don't let grief drive the wheel. Anger is human. Vengeance is a trap. Real reckoning lasts when it stays lawful, public, and community-backed. Lawyers, neighbors, faith leaders, and cameras in the open. The legacy we leave our grandkids isn't just outrage. It's change that can't be undone. If you were in Elias's place, watching officials call a death procedure and a lie fear, what would you do that stays inside the law, but still forces real accountability? Would you push for stronger body cam rules, independent investigations, or monthly public stop data reports? Maybe you've lived through your own moment when dignity was questioned for no good reason. At a store, a workplace, or behind flashing lights. Share your story and your solution in the comments. If this message matters to you, please hit like, subscribe, and share this video so more people, especially our older neighbors, can stay informed and empowered.